Hello and welcome back to Battleship Cove. I'm Paul Scalabroni, volunteer, and today we're back on the Joseph P. Kennedy doing our monthly updates on the work we've been doing for the past couple of months. Today we're getting the ship ready for the spring and summer months because usually when we get to the winter here, they're a little harsh in New England, so a lot of the stuff on the decks we take off to help preserve it for the winter time. Mainly up here on the signal bridge is the canvas bunting that we put onto the rails, the searchlights and their covers, and the canvas covers on the flag boxes and some of the signal flags. The flags we got to replace a few of them because they got a little tattered from being in storage, so that's going to be one of the projects we do. But for this morning we were literally stringing up all the canvas racks, not racks, the canvas bunting, and it basically pretty much surrounds the entire perimeter of this deck. Goes over the big eyes and some of the equipment up forward here in front of the director. There are a few that we need to replicate again, mainly over, I believe this is a gyro compass that needs to get a new cover for it. And the two covers that go over the sides of the rangefinder on the director need to be completely replicated, but those are a little more complex. They're not canvas, I think they're actually like a denim material, and they have zippers and stuff that can come around, but we have a volunteer that replicates a lot of that that's going to be working with us to get those done once we get them the patterns. And while we're up here on the signal bridge, one of the other long-term projects we want to do, because we've been trying to get the ship mostly painted, is the mast, the forward mast on the ship. It's pretty much the only spot that still has all the flaking, ugly paint. We can do most of it on our own. Some of it we're going to have to probably contract out because we're going to need to either set up scaffolding or have people on rigging to get it done. And the other project we're going to try to attempt today is to get our radar dishes to rotate again, because we haven't had those going probably in 10 plus years. We haven't tried to actually rotate them. So according to Rich, we can do it. We just have to get up there and check the oil in the gearboxes, and then we're going to try to put power to them and see if we can get them to rotate. So hopefully the next time people come see the ship in this summer, we'll have it looking a little more like she's getting ready to go out to sea with some of the systems actually running. Alrighty, and we're back here in the mess decks on the Kennedy, and this space is largely done with the restoration, but some of the things we keep mentioning in the videos is when you're done with a space, you're never truly done. There's always a few little details here and there that you can add in. One of them being the Coke machine with the CO2 bottles that go with it. We were finally able to source the right type CO2 bottles. We basically stripped them down, gave them a fresh coat of paint, and we put them back onto the bottle rack. So now you can actually see the whole space and setup as it was supposed to be. It's a small detail, but when you come into the ship and you see little things like that, all the small details in whole add up to a large display, and it makes the space look like it's lived in a much better way to present the space than it's just having an empty rack that people wonder what was there. So right now we're going to head down to First Division, where we've been doing an extensive amount of painting and work down there, which is right below the mess decks. So this area we've shown in a lot of videos, and it's been another long-term restoration project we've been doing. So we finally had the space painted out. Rich was down here a couple weeks ago. He got the large part of the deck painted. We got everything cleaned up. We're getting ready to put the racks back in. We got a few that we have to restring canvas on, and there's a bunch in the bulkhead over here that are restrung that are getting ready to go up. We just have to make sure all the hangers and the mounts are all in place. But this compartment is pretty much work-wise for the restoration side done. Now we just have to have all the details put back into it. But it's another spot on the ship that was a disaster when we started that now we can actually do private tours down here. This isn't going to be on the normal tour route for the most part, but when you're in the wardroom, you can look down and see everything, and well, not the wardroom, in the mess deck. You can look down and see what's down here, but it's pretty much the same berthing space as back aft because they needed places to put the crew, so anywhere there was a large compartment, you had a lot of people sleeping. And another quick note, which was kind of the catalyst that started a lot of the projects we're doing with the deck restoration and the painting in these spaces, is if you look on the forward bulkhead of this compartment, there used to be tile and leveler there, and you can see literally that whole bulkhead is blown through all the way across, and that's Sonar on the other side, and the reefer deck right below us. But when we took a lot of this up, and especially you'll see in a second when we go into Sonar, that there was just nothing left of that part of the bulkhead. So we have to get that all cut out and new metal welded in, which is what started in the next room. So you'll see that when we go over there. But that's the main reason we started pulling out all the tile and the floors in here, is because we knew we were going to see a lot of that all over the ship. And unfortunately, it was letting water cascade through some spots. A lot of these lockers had filled up with water and they just sat there for years, and that's not a good situation. So that's what we're slowly reversing all of that, which is the main reason the tile had to come up on the ship. So another small detail that Rich tried to replicate is we had a photo historically of the ship of this part of the compartment with a sailor sitting right here with these lockers kind of as a backdrop behind him. So we didn't have a lot of these lockers. These are things that we pick up on strip trips, and a lot of the stuff that the Navy is definitely grateful enough to give to us over the years. So now that we have a lot of these lockers, Rich tried to recreate the backdrop in the photo because these would have been right there. So we're going to show you the original photo and kind of what's there now. So it's kind of a cool transition between what was and what we have now, and trying to recreate everything from photos, because a lot of the spaces we have, that's all we have to go on are photographs for the restoration process, because there's small hints of what would have been there, but photos tell us everything we need to know. So when we can find that kind of stuff, it helps us a lot with the restoration process. Alrighty, we're down here in Sonar now. This is another spot in the recent couple of months we've been doing an extensive amount of work and showing some Facebook posts on. Mainly what we've been doing now that we have the equipment out of the way is replacing all the wasted steel in the deck, and as you'll see in a second, the side of the ship. So a lot of this plate, we showed pictures that was just gone, and Brendan and Drew have been cutting the patches, getting everything fitted. There's still areas here where they're working, getting some of the wasted steel out. We just had a ton of equipment we had to move. You can actually see right here, and then the other rooms, like all these Sonar amplifiers, which are extremely heavy. We had to disconnect it all and get it out of the way because there was no room to work. So that's what this whole side of the compartment is now. And when we were just in First Division, we were talking about the holes in the bulkhead. This is the other side of it. And you can obviously see there is no deck there. That's what happens when, unfortunately, we had overnights and stuff that would stay on the ship, and there was a shower above us that sprung a leak, and over years it just kept flowing down here, and with the tile on the floor got underneath it, held the moisture, and just completely wasted the deck away. To the point where everything I'm standing on, almost all the way forward, this is all getting new steel. And a side effect that we had, which we did a Facebook post on, when we were cleaning up this corner, we actually blew through a bit of the hull. We're still well above the water line, so it's nothing dangerous for flooding, but Brandon cut out that piece. We welded in a nice brand new patch, so that's all secure again. We got to paint it on the outside of the ship because now we have a bare steel section, but this is all getting replaced with all brand new steel, so this will be 100% watertight again. Everything will be able to be sealed off in case the worst ever happens, but it's also just to have the space back to actually being usable as an exhibit again, because we can't bring anybody in here right now with the deck in this condition. It's just not safe. So one of the little more fun projects we've been doing on board is trying to get some of our displays, and mainly CIC in the bridge, a little bit more functionally appealing, with the radar scopes doing sweeps and everything looking like it should. So unfortunately, a lot of that, the old timers that used to work on board here knew how all that worked, and they don't come around anymore. Some of them have passed on. So we have to figure out how all this stuff works almost all over again. Luckily, we have some manuals, but there are some clues they left around on how to get things going. Past week or two, we've been messing with the video system that feeds all into the radars. And this is one of the distribution boxes right here. We opened it up and we could see that they modified it. There's actually a little switch on the side to turn the whole panel on. And these are putting the video out, and they put a little signal generator in there to give a sweep and make it seem like the radar is doing something. But we have to figure out where this goes now to power up the SPA-8s and all the other systems up in CIC. Our radar arrays topside, we mentioned that a little early in the video. We're trying to figure out what switches we have to turn on to make those work. There's also an oiling system that we have to double check. That's hydraulically putting oil into it to make sure we don't burn up the motors. So there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of backtracking, figuring out what came before us, how to make it work, how to safely make it work. Because a lot of these systems are 440 volts, and you don't just want to flip a breaker just to see what happens, because if it's shorted out or something's not happy, you could cause more problems down the road. So there's a lot of reading, a lot of trying to figure out what's wired where before we put power to a system or turn power back onto a system to figure out what's going on. So there's a little bit to it to make things work and make them look cool. People see a radar just spinning on the top of the ship and they think, it's just a motor, but there's a whole range of systems that go into that thing to make it spin that you have to make sure are all working safely for it to operate, so you're not damaging the equipment, because again, it's a historic artifact. We can't just exactly replace the radar array if we were to burn up the motor, so we got to do it responsibly. Same thing with the video systems, the radars. These systems, you can't just replace them, so we want to use them appropriately and make it so it's a nice display functionally, but it also looks interesting to people when they come into CIC and don't just see a dead compartment. Alrighty, so now we're up in CIC on the Kennedy, and part of what we were just down below in the radar room looking at directly interfaces with the machines up here, mainly the radar scopes. As you can see with this one here, it's feeding video to the scope. Right now it's not looking like it should. It should have a sweeping line, so I got to go through these scopes and internally figure out what's wrong. There could be some bad components. The vacuum tubes could be bad in some of these. It's finally a field where I get to use some of my actual training in electronics, is fixing some of this stuff. Normally I'm with a paint scraper or something, but this at least get to use what I'm trained in electronics to fix, so this is where it gets a little fun for me. But we want to get all the scopes in here going. These, we want to get the SPA 8s going. There's a third one in the back. And basically we know the video system's working because we can see it feeding the scopes, but now we got to get power to these and get everything up and running again. And then when you walk into CIC, everything's going to look like it should as if the ship was underway. All right, we'd like to thank you for joining us here for our update video for this month's work on the Joseph P. Kennedy. Like usual, we ask that you like, share, subscribe to our videos. It helps us out greatly. It keeps the algorithm happy on YouTube. And if you want to get involved and you like what you see, what we're doing with these ships, come to our website, fill out a volunteer form, come down and volunteer with us. If you can't volunteer in person, but you still want to donate, we take monetary donations. If you have items you think the ships could use that we could display, we do that as well. And basically, if you want to get involved, there's many ways to do it. So we'd like to thank you for watching our video. I'm Paul Scalabroni, volunteer here at Battleship Cove, and we'll catch you on the next one.